Bob, I want to start off asking, what do we know about Intel's new CEO, Lip Bhutan?
So Lip Bhutan is a semiconductor industry veteran. So he was been on the board of Intel for several years, but one of his most prominent roles was he was the CEO of Cadence. Now, Cadence is a company that creates tools that are used to design chips. So the beauty of that, and the reason why I think he's a really good match for Intel, is this means he understands both the chip manufacturing side, which of course being the foundry side of the business, as well as the chip design side, which is the product side of the business. So in my mind, what he brings to the job is a great deal of knowledge and understanding of Intel, B, a huge amount of industry experience and connections, and C, knowledge of the critical areas that Intel I think is going to continue to move forward in. So in my mind, this should get rid of some of the questions of like, oh, are they going to sell off the foundry or what are they going to do? I think he's going to continue to focus on both of those things.
One of the interesting things is that he was previously on the board of Intel, but he left last year over disagreements with the direction of the company. And now he's coming back as the CEO. So, what does this say about the direction that Intel is heading?
There's been a lot of debate about exactly what the board was trying to achieve. And then the conflicts, of course, that they ended up having with Gelsinger. So hard to know exactly for sure what the differences that Liput had back when he left. But clearly, he had a vision for the company that obviously drove him to feel the way he did. And so, I think we're going to see him try and deploy that vision. We'll find out more details moving forward. But certainly, if you look at the initial comments he made in the press release, it suggests very strongly, like I said, that they're going to continue moving forward on the foundry side, and they're going to continue on the product side, which I think they need to do. And look, it's a long term um, process. It's not going to happen overnight.
And with this being a long term process and him being a veteran of the chip industry, where do you think Intel is in 3 to 5 years? What are we talking about when we say Intel then?
I think it means that Intel kind of returns to some of its former glory if they can execute properly. Meaning, they're seen both as a process manufacturing leader as well as a product leader. And I mean, I think they've lost ground, unfortunately, on both sides. Um, and of course, TSMC has been the big winner in terms of the process technology, but Intel's been really working hard, and I give Gelsinger a lot of credit, Gelsinger being the former CEO, in driving towards improving their process technology again. I think Intel lost their way on that, and yet that was a critical differentiator for them. And everybody ended up moving, a lot of their business, of course, to TSMC. Not that Intel had much of a external foundry business, but for them to even be considered a reasonable alternative to TSMC, they needed to be as good as, if not a little better. Now, coming back to your original question, 3 to 5 years, at that point, we may see Intel build up the foundry business enough that they end up selling it off as an independent entity. That would not be a shock. There's been discussions about that. They're just not in a position to do that just yet.
Reuters earlier reported that TSMC and other manufacturers would be interested in a joint venture with Intel. So, with that in mind, then what you just said about Intel's future, do you think that reported deal might still be on the table, or are we looking at that as probably no longer an option?
I'm guessing that's no longer an option. And I think that's part of the reason why the market reacted well, because all of a sudden it gives more of a clear vision for Intel. And there's been a lot of uncertainty around the company ever since, for several months, several quarters. Not just the having Gelsinger leave, but also frankly their financial reports, because they had to write down the assets of the foundry dramatically, and that has a huge impact on their profitability, which in turn impacted their stock price. And it just raised a lot of questions in the industry. I mean, Intel was the stalwart of the largest semiconductor company in the world for a very, very long time. So it's been a real challenge to see them kind of go through the challenges that they faced. But I believe that with this move, we're going to see discussions around JVs and other things go away. Still a lot of questions about what's going to happen with the CHIPS Act here in the US, and hopefully that isn't impacted, but that's yet another factor that may come into play. And frankly, another factor that may have influenced Lip-Bu to come back or not. I mean, all of these things are all going on simultaneously.